Welcome to Unblocking the Chain. My name is Michael Prendiville, and I'm your host today. Joining me as co-host is the unstoppable Jelly Seed Chairman and Macropod CEO, Drew Bradford. Welcome, Drew.
Thanks, Chris. Always good to be here.
Mate, you're looking magnificent. And also in the background, we've got the guy that pulls it all together, the one, the only, Andrew Menzel. Welcome, Menas.
G'day, guys. Great to be with you. Very excited about having you two talking about crypto on the show.
It's a good one to do, Menas, because we're, it's a very important time in the market. Sort of crypto has been under pressure. So it's good time for us to get out there and really give the punters a little bit of intel on what's going on. Today, we're going to go through and we're going to assess the positives and negatives of crypto because there's a lot going on. You know, Bitcoin's dropped down through the 50-week moving average of a 102.5. So everyone's well and truly in bear mode. We're going to go through, we're going to talk about the macro.
Yeah, can you imagine this? If we went back 2 years and so said Bitcoin's at $100,000 and everyone's at 16 on the fear and greed index.
I know. We've sold 2022 when we were picking them up around, just below 20,000, and now it's up around 100, and everyone's sort of,
scared,
dishing it.
Fear.
Yeah, that's right. It's amazing. So today we're going to talk about the macros. We're going to talk about the techs. We'll talk about market positioning, and the sentiment as well. And then we'll go through pretty much the Magnificent Seven, i.e. the top 7 cryptocurrencies and any of the alts that need to be covered. So we've got a lot to get through. And Mena's got us on a strict timeline. So let's get cracking. Let's start off with the macros. There's lots going on that front. Recently we had the government shutdown. That was on the 12th of November. We came out of that. That was 43 days of shutdown. We were always going to come out of it. There's a little bit of positive sentiment once the announcement sort of came out. It was really 24 hours in the making. And Bitcoin bounced up to around about 107,000, but it was poor price action. Okay, so when we talk about the positives and negatives, the fact that only had a small bounce and then settled back down towards the lows, I'm putting that as a negative. I'm putting that down as certainly something which shows that the market is heavy. Okay, so on the macro front, we've got one for the negatives. Go for the bearish side. Okay, Fed funds rate. It's gone from a probability of 100% rate cut in December, okay, or just below that on poly markets, okay, and is now sitting just above 50%. Okay, so the fact that it is not, is not a lay down misere, is another negative. And most of the people in Australia would have seen the headlines about Australian beef now being accepted over at the US. Well, there's a greater thing happening there. You can clearly feel that the people in the US are feeling the pinch from inflation, especially food inflation. Okay, so Trump is now starting to go, okay, that's it. We're going to take the tariffs off food inflation, and we're going to allow imports of food to bypass that. So Australian beef's one of the ones that, is definitely going to benefit. But you can see that inflation is sort of feeding through to, the Fed's decision making. And the market is now starting to question whether it is, in fact, a right to have another rate cut. So we get number 2 on the bearish side there. Okay, another negative factor. Okay, then
Chris, on that. So we do get the rate cut. So it's gone to 50-50.
Yeah.
So we do get it in December. So that becomes a positive then.
Yeah, that's right. We flip it.
Yeah,
absolutely flip it. But if there is no rate cut, then it'll continue to weigh on the market. Drew, you mentioned this in one of our chats just recently, but the 4-year crypto cycle. Okay, what do
Yes.
you think on that? Tell us about that. Where are we at? And
So the
is it a
so the
relevant thing?
No, look, it's very relevant. You'll remember this very vividly, as did I, when we opened up Jelly C in November in 2021. That was Bitcoin at $64,000. Hey, it's November 2025. It's 4 years later. So if you're going to do 4 year cycles, then that was the last high. Maybe that's, you're seeing November 2025 will go down as a cycle top if you're a believer of the 4 year cycles. So maybe we do go sideways to down for the next 12 months as we did in 2022. 2022 was a pretty messy year for the whole sector. I guess why I'm a little bit not of that view is we are not seeing the frothiness that we saw in 2021 or at the tail end in December 2017, the previous 4 years. That was very frothy in that run up from 5,000 to 20,000 at the end of 2017, and it was very frothy in 2021. I just don't think you've seen that frothiness, so it doesn't feel like that's the case. But your earlier observation, the price action just feels horrible. That's why every time you get a bit of good news, the market just can't seem to rally, and that's in your quality, your Magnificent Seven. If you look at some of the further down the risk spectrum into some of the alts, they have been absolutely dreadful.
Trash. That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, there's that debate, isn't there, whether the 4 year cycle is actually a relevant thing now that institutions are entering the market and, with the institutional adoption, ETFs, but also direct institutional adoption of crypto. There can be a lag of 1 to 2 years. So whilst all this adoption is coming on, you might be right, Drew. We might have that 12 months like we did between November 21 and, really November, December 22 when it hit its lows. I think Bitcoin got down to, let's say, somewhere between 13 and 17,000, depending on who you speak to. But, now it's up at, 95,000 this morning. It has come a long way. It's only natural from a cycle perspective that, it may pull back.
Yeah, and I just think the activity we're going to see on chain, I'm actually really bullish in 2026 for builders. And I think, we saw the Genius Act pass, in mid 2020, mid 5 this year. But the throughput of that, or the end result of that, is things like you're seeing on the Nasdaq go to tokenize all their equities. So come Q4 2026, if you want to buy Google or Nvidia or any shares on Nasdaq, you're going to need to do that on chain with stable coins, and that will just increase the activity, on chain activity, which generates fees and it makes those chains more valuable as they get more and more activity. So I think, I'm very, very positive for the next 12 months that we're going to see a lot more activity on chain. And that should flow into prices, but we're clearly digesting at the moment, and that activity isn't here yet.
Yep. Okay, so let's summarize. We've got the 4 year cycle. That brings us to 3 negatives. Okay, no positives yet. Let's just quickly talk about another macros. The US, the US reserves of bank deposits had a massive drop. In the last 30 days, it sort of came off significantly to just above 3 trillion. It sort of peaked in 2022 at 4.2. When banks have less deposits, that is a significant telltale sign of the economy. Okay, so I'm going to put that down as another negative. Okay, so we've got 4. Really, in the last 3 days, so from the 12th, 13th, 14th of November, and this is really a short-term indicator, but, the ETF flows from Bitcoin and from Ethereum. So Bitcoin over those 3 days There's an outflow of 1.65 billion, and ETH an outflow of just over 600 mil. Okay, so I'm also, from a flow perspective, giving it negative. So, pretty much now, what have we got? That brings us to 5 negatives. Okay, but it's not all bad. We'll start with the negatives. Okay, and then let's peel it back now. Okay, so global M2, that's still touching highs. Now, there's a good correlation, a lagged correlation between global M2 and the price of Bitcoin. Okay, now that is still, so we've got it at 114.1 trillion, and that is almost at its all-time highs. Okay, so that's not pulling back. That means liquidity is still flowing.
There's other liquidity measures, particularly non-US dollar liquidity measures, that are actually way higher as opposed to just M2. If you look at broader money around the world is at all-time highs and has been accelerating for the last 3 or 4 months. So that, but it's non-US dollar liquidity in particular.
Yeah,
and lot in China, and that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so that's why we like to look at global M2 as well, as it captures liquidity around the world. So that's an important indicator. What we would say is on the 1st of December, the US is due to come out of QT.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a positive. Okay, so it's
only because the government's reopened. If they hadn't reopened, you wouldn't be able to have anyone to send the money anywhere.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a positive. We'll notch that down. That's that's 2 positives. There's a couple other ones.
I'd rate that as a double positive, because don't forget, as you said, the government's been shut down for 40 days or whatever. That means no money's been leaving. No money's been leaving the Treasury General account, things like that. So there's a big pot of money that's been built up and not flowing into the system, that once the government reopens will start flowing. And you're seeing, because you had been seeing some creaks in the repo market. So there's definitely some not fun stuff going on with the shutdown, which hopefully will all be, the liquidity, the lubricant will come back into the system.
Yeah, I agree. A couple other ones that you just quickly talk about. Gold and silver still holding up very well. Okay, as a store of value, and Bitcoin obviously being the digital store of value. There is a divergence.
And a better store of value.
Ooh, exactly. There's there's a divergence there. Gold and silver really holding up extremely well, and have outperformed Bitcoin this year. Okay, so I would say that there will be people looking to to buy the dip based on that. So let's give that another positive. So we're up to 3 there, and then really the correlation between equities. Equities are really holding up, quite well. Okay, so
quite well. You've only got to look at a Google share price.
Exactly.
Jeez.
That's right. Okay, so generally Bitcoin is the and crypto is the first mover. Okay, so it's a canary in the coal mine. Now, Bitcoin has come off, and gold and silver and equities, etc., are still punching around their all-time highs, not far off. Okay, so one of these markets, or a couple of these markets, are wrong. So the Bitcoin's wrong, and that's got to correct higher. Or, for instance, equities and gold and silver have to start to come off. Okay, so I'm going to add that into the positive category for Bitcoin. So now we've got 5 negatives, we've got 4 positives so far. So I think we're starting to peg it back a little bit. So that's good.
Finding equilibrium.
That's right, exactly. Okay, so let's get onto the technicals. That's a big one. It's broken its 50-week moving average. And the reason why we harp on about this 50-week moving average for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin being the, really the indicator of the overall market, because it's, around 58% of the market. it's broken that, and that particular 50-week index, 50-week moving average, that held 3 times on the way up, okay, from the lows in 2022. Okay, so the fact that it breaks and is now sitting around 102.5 is a significant thing. So as long as it stays below that level, we have to be defensive. It is pretty much what it comes down to. I'm going to add that to the negatives. Okay, so we've got 6 negatives now. We've got 4 positives. Let's talk about sentiment now, Drew. Fear and greed.
Look, fear and greed. As you said,
Yep.
you touched 16. And according to my friend Grok, right, if you go back and look at every time while there's information available on where is the fear and greed index, when it hits below 18, what is the average price in 90 days' time?
Much higher.
So the average price after the fear and greed index has gone below 18, the average price over the next 90 days is a 26% price improvement. The worst case scenario is a 4% price improvement, and the best was 103% in the 90 days following the fear and greed index getting below 18. So there are some data points
on and buy.
Yeah, so they're your data points. As long as you're happy to hold for 90 days and not worry about what happens in the next 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever. But that's what's happened the last 10 times the index has gone below 18.
Drew,
so
that
there's
sounds
just
like
some data point. According to Grok.
Taking candy from a baby. Turn your machine on.
If you're just sitting... Yep. So if you're just worried about where's it going to be at the end of February next year, that's all you got to worry about. Enjoy Christmas. Take some time out.
That's good. Yeah. Okay. So let's just set and forget. Okay. So I'm going to add an extra positive on there. So we've got 6 negatives, 5 positives. Just on the fear and greed, on March 11th earlier this year, the fear and greed got down to 15, and that was the absolute low. We hit, for instance, 16. We're currently at 17. We're very close to being in that zone. So, like Drew said, give it 90 days. The percentages are that it'll be higher again. Okay, so I think it's almost, if I had to say, it's almost worth 2 points, but we'll only give it 1 because we're being fair. Okay, so we're currently at 6 negatives and 5 positives. Let's get into the granular level now, Drew. Let's talk about the Magnificent 7. Okay, so starting with so if I talk about the Magnificent 7, obviously you got Bitcoin number 1, you got Ethereum, as number 2, you got Tether, Ripple, BNB, Solana, and then last but not least is USDC. Okay, so we've already discussed Bitcoin, which is technically broken down, but feels undervalued on a number of the macros. Okay, let's talk about Ethereum. Okay, so there's a hell of a lot going on, as Drew mentioned earlier. In the podcast, there's a lot of activity going on. I think what was it? The Ethereum ecosystem on a daily basis got up to just below 350 transactions per millisecond. Okay, so that is like an absolute, feat.
There's a lot of activity.
There is a lot of activity. Okay, so that is it's a massive thing. I think a lot of those transactions are going through base at the moment. I think it was up around 100, 180 of the just below the 350. So the activity going through is significant. There's no doubt about that. You talk about the institutional players, JP Morgan, deposit token, etc., all entering the market. As we mentioned previously, there is a lag of, them coming to the market. So there's often a 12-month lag. I think that everything is being set up for an absolute, flurry
Ball
of
terror?
activity. Yes, in the alts. I'd say the alts to me are looking absolutely magnificent. I know Marcus Thielen put out a research paper just recently saying, any Ethereum below 3,300, close your eyes and ship it in. Okay, we're sitting just above 3,100
Well,
at the moment.
you've only got to look at just the activity going on around effectively stablecoins and real world assets being tokenized. If you look at now, if 50% of the stablecoins are on ETH. So if you're and if you look at the turnover on stablecoins is currently $60 billion a day. And if you look at the turnover in the global foreign exchange market, it's $9.5 trillion, $9.4 trillion a day. Right. So the BIS have just come out with their, or in 30 September, they released their survey they do every 3 years. So that means stablecoin turnover is less than 1% of turnover in foreign exchange. So since, while we're doing now, we've had the Genius Act, you're seeing a lot of stablecoin people looking at stablecoin regulation. Hong Kong's about to give out a bunch of licenses in Q1 next year. You've got the ECB doing Project Agora. You've got the Reserve Bank here doing Project Acacia. You've got all this activity where builders are looking at the underlying blockchains as opposed to just the price of Bitcoin or the price of everything. But there's a lot of building activity going on, and that activity is only going to get higher. And it's such a small percentage of what's going on in the traditional world. But over the course of this, I'm very, very bullish in 2026 on on-chain activity, because there's a lot of real activity that's getting built, and that will flow into, prices. Activity, it's like the tollways we've always talked about. You get those chains. It's like buying the tollway, and every time someone drives down your tollway, they've got to pay you the $5.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
something that I think you're going to see a ton of over the next 12 months. So
Yeah. So just a couple of stats on that. 194 billion in USDT, continues to reach new highs. USDC at 75 billion. So the stablecoin market caps, going through the roof. You've even got new entrants like USD1, which is affiliated with World Liberty Finance. They're up around 2.8 billion. So there's a lot of activity going through that side, and I just have to make a correction. That was not 350 per millisecond. That's 350 per second. But
yeah,
that is still a
Ethereum's
load
not
of
that
transactions.
fast.
No, this is in the greater ecosystem for Ethereum, layer 1 and 2s. Okay, so you're seeing that type of transaction count. So it's constantly going up, and with the real world adoption and institutions coming in, that's only going to get bigger and bigger. So I am now starting to get a lot more bulled up on the utility of the the different networks and the different systems that are going to benefit from all the transactions going through. Okay, so quickly onto Ripple. Got the ETF starting on Ripple. So that's positive. You'll see direct inflows there. The Solana ETFs have already come through. Ripple's also they've got Project Tundra, okay, which is connecting Ripple to Solana, so making that more compatible. And they're also moving to EVM compatible. So you can see they're gearing their network up to be able to be interoperable with the greater Ethereum and Solana ecosystem. So that's positive for Ripple. BNB, bloody good. I mean, CZ, they are switched on. So whenever there's a new piece of tech, let's call it X402, either payments tech, they are onto it like a seagull onto a hot chip. So you can never discount BNB. They are always going to be there, and they're always going to be, quickly adapting. So their ability to be flexible and quickly adapt is something which is really positive. CZ back in the game, you got to give it the big tick. So it's got to be part of the portfolio. Solana, we spoke about. ETFs have just been launched. They've got the the Alpenglow consensus upgrade, which is really bullish. So they go from a finality of their blocks from 12.8 seconds down to 150 milliseconds. Okay, so that is that positive. That basically that puts them up there with the Nasdaq to be able to do the high frequency trading.
Oh yeah. You look, it'll
very
be
hard.
fast, and
Yeah.
And this, I guess, this is why the jump trading guys were involved in that in the first place. It suited them to get that speed up.
Yeah, I mean it's really in terms of new tech, Solana has got it all. So even if it was just a hybrid, Solana, with the speed, and then you have the decentralized and the validator set from Ethereum, I think that would be the best of both cases. But you've got to have both of those in your portfolio. So I'm, overall, when we look at the Magnificent Seven, everything's sort of doing well. Upgrades going through, adoption coming. I'm going to give it another positive, Drew.
Oh, there you go. So we're definitely even. So
we're
at
even. We're at 6 and 6.
6 and 6.
Jeez, man, this is like an exciting race to see, who comes out on top. So 6 and 6. We've got a number of other projects on the, further down the curve. So the mid and lower caps on the alternative side, things like the privacy coins. So talk about, it's a railgun, not to be confused with ray gun, Australia's own ray gun, but railgun and Zcash. And they're the privacy coin. So you can move between, a public chain and a private chain there, with a click of the mouse. Okay, so you get your best of both worlds there. And that's really starting to capture the attention of the market. For instance, Zcash gone from $51 in September up to above 700. Okay, so some of the lucky punters out there that are on that, they'll be they'll almost forget about saying when Lambo, it's Lambo now.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's
doors that go like this.
Oh no, exactly. There's the unification plan. They've switched on their fee switch, so that's positive for DeFi. They're joining, for instance, the likes of Lido and Aave and Curve and Hyperliquid. So now those particular DeFi apps are starting to give back to the token holders. Whereas previously you sort of wondered, where is the utility coming from? Okay, where is the demand for the token coming from? Okay, now the fees that have been generated are being used to either build the treasury or burn the token. Okay, so that's quite a big thing. So another positive there. So are we on to? Do we give that a positive, Drew? Do we give the overall the? Yeah, I think we're at.
There is, because if you look at all the activity that's going on chain, there's a lot of chains out there that are trading, historically as a multiple of the earnings were trading at well above tech stocks. And now there's a lot trading below your typical tech stock multiple. So these guys are trading more like, utilities as opposed to fast growing industry. So I think, that makes their PEs cheap. So yes, that's a positive over time.
Okay. So let's give that one. So we're at 7 and 6. Okay, at the moment. Now, what is also difficult to reconcile about the bearish market at the moment is the fact that funding rates are still very positive. Okay, so you're seeing decent positive funding rates for Bitcoin, not as much for Ethereum, but certainly we're sort of we're at rates that do not suggest a massive pullback in the market. Okay, so basis, Bitcoin basis is still trading at 4%. So there is positivity there. There is people who are happy to hold on. Okay, in terms of maintaining their exposure, I think that's really positive. Okay, so if we didn't give that previous one a positive, we certainly adding in the funding rates, we would give it a positive. So let's keep it at 7 and 6, and then the only other thing that's probably worth mentioning are the DATs.
Yeah.
Okay, so the digital
I'm not
asset.
sure they're a positive.
That's exactly right. So I was going to say that the the likes of strategy, which is trading with an MNAV of 1.2, that's sort of touched below 1 just briefly the other last week. You've got Xton that's trading at a 30% discount. If I had to. If I was looking to trade those particular stocks, and this is not financial advice, but as a investment manager, if I was looking to trade those stocks, I would be looking for a 30 to 40% discount before I loaded the boat.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
that's very true, Chris.
Yep.
Or unless there's some kind of tax arb, because like if you buy Bitcoin, if you're Japanese and you buy
that's
Bitcoin,
right.
it goes up, you're on a 50% tax rate. Whereas if you buy a treasury firm, you're only on a 25% cap gain. So they should trade at a slight premium because of the different tax treatment of the DAT versus you as an individual.
Yep. Okay, so let's give the DATs a negative. That has potential to weigh on the market, especially if some of the DATs need to fund some of the debt that is that's rolling off.
Yeah.
If they've done any structured notes. Okay, so we're at 7 and 7. Drew, I'm handing it over to you. Just quickly on the regulatory side, can we eke out a negative or a positive here?
Oh, look, I think the regulatory front is going to be so positive over the next 12 months. And it's a slow burn, so it's not, hey, is it going up next week? But I actually think that the regulators in a lot of countries are further ahead than the financial institutions in their appetite to see this. Like if you look at the G20 central banks and the FSB are all meeting in Saudi Arabia this week, and they're going to look at how do you get foreign exchange or the fees for cross-border payments lower. That's going to be one of the things that they're going to talk about, and they've been talking about that for a number of years, and it hasn't gone anywhere. As in, the fees haven't gone down. Western Union's still making a fortune, but the answer now is stablecoins. And that's going to be a way to massively reduce cross-border payments and the friction that is a cost on commerce. It's a cost for people making remittances. It's a cost for small businesses. And unfortunately, FX spreads are widest for those that can least afford it. The guys that can afford it the most, like your big financial institutions, they pay the narrowest spreads. Yet it's your remittance payments, trying to send $100 home to mum and dad, and only $80 is getting there. So I think there'll be a lot of regulatory support for a blockchain solution for that. And that will get more and more turnover down various networks that manage high processing turnover. As Solana could be a big beneficiary of that. So we'll see, and BNB and a few other chains, I'm sure. So that's
Drew,
I think that is going to be a big
shut up and take
positive.
my money and
That'll
invest
be a
it in
big
Ethereum
positive.
and Solana and BNB.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
that'll be huge positive. Huge.
Yeah. We're on 8 versus 7, so we're slightly in the bullish territory. I guess the last question that I would have is, what are the biggest risks out there today for investors? We've got 27.2 million cryptocurrencies. Okay, so when I look at the market, I think the biggest risk is that you're investing in something which is not going to participate in all of this excitement that we've just been talking about. And, it is buyer beware. Just an indicator for the punters out there, 64% of those tokens, so of the 27.2 million, are on Solana. Now, most of those are meme coins. Okay, you've got 11% on BNB, and there's a hell of a lot of meme coins there. Okay, what I would say is that you need to pick the right. You got to pick the right cryptocurrencies to be involved with. And I, genuinely think that, there will be a theory. This is not financial advice, of course, but I genuinely think that Ethereum, with its layer 1, layer 2 ecosystem, Solana with its speed, BNB with its ability to be able to be flexible and move. There's three there that are, that we certainly have in our portfolio that we're really excited about. So, technicals, slightly negative, Drew, with Bitcoin breaking through the 50-week moving average. There's opportunity to get yourself set at a point in the next period. I'm not sure when it is, but in the next period at some really good levels, especially on the alts. And that's kind of where I would leave it.
Yep.
What do you
Look,
think?
I'm very positive on-chain activity. I can't tell you 2026 is going to be a huge year for builders in our industry, and a lot of traditional things that actually will really, really benefit from being on-chain, whether on-chain registries, on-chain foreign exchange. It'll reduce the fees for those who are at least able to pay those fees. And I'm very positive on on-chain activity. So any chain that's going to benefit from on-chain activity,
yeah,
giddy up.
I still think every transaction through the blockchain, and like Joni Pirovich said, I think every firm is going to be a crypto firm in the future.
Oh,
So,
Chris, this is like the internet. When the internet started, when I was a young boy, that you watch firms. If you didn't move part of your sales process, you didn't have a website, you didn't move and have a digital distribution, your firms died. And this will be exactly the same. And you won't even notice it. You won't have a blockchain strategy. It'll be just part of the way you do business. But that's 5 years out. That's not next year.
yeah, that's right. Exactly. Okay, so we've still got the cycles. So anyway, good opportunities to, to get set. We're still beavering away, building, and life goes on. So we'll just take advantage of any dips that come our way. Anything to say,
Awesome.
Menace? What do you think?
I'm obsessed by this fear and greed index. As someone
Yes.
who's not in the finance industry, I'd never heard of it. So I'm going to be watching that all the time. And I think they need a picture of Gordon Gekko from Wall Street on the index.
Oh, at the greedy end?
Yes, exactly. Like Gordon Gekko at one side, and I don't know who you'd have at the fear side, but
Going back to that era, Ivan Boesky getting put in jail or somebody like that on the fear side. What happens? You go to jail anyway.
that's true.
Yeah.
But great
Oh.
stuff, guys. That was a fascinating chat. Hearing you guys update with all the latest news, really valuable stuff.
Good stuff, man. It's great to be here, and well done, Troy. Always good
Good
to talk, mate. Always good to talk.
Well, don't forget, everybody.
Busy environment.
That's it. So don't forget, everybody, like and subscribe to the podcast. If you love digital assets and crypto, share it on your socials for all your mates so they can learn more about it too. And all the information is in the episode notes if you want to reach out to find out what these two guns are doing. But Critter, Drew, thank you very much.
Thanks, Menace. Thanks, Troy.
Stay, Chris.